Alright guys, let's talk about Vercel for a moment. Vercel is doing a lot of work in the front-end cloud, as they say, and of course they are someone you know about if you work with React.js or Next.js, because it's just so popular out there with React teams and Next.js teams that a solution like Vercel exists, which helps you deploy your websites and everything, related to Next.js instantly without any configuration, without any management, and it does it fast. It does it on the edge so that your website is fast from anywhere in the world, and it does it very seamlessly. So I want to talk a little bit about Vercel in this video. It will be a one which includes my honest reviews and things Vercel is doing. So if you go to vercel.com/ship, you will see that they recently released a bunch of things, and to be honest, I'm not very impressed with what they did overall because of one big reason, and that is pricing. So let's take a look at their first day in this Vercel ship thing which they did. So what Vercel did a couple of days back is it introduced a bunch of services. So let's talk about every single one of them in this video. Vercel KV. Vercel KV is a key value. So KV is a very common way of saying that you have a key value storage, a key value store, and Redis is the most popular one out there which exists. So what they did is that they created a serverless Redis solution that's easy and durable, powered by Upstash. So Upstash is a service. If you go to Google and Google for Upstash, you're gonna find that it's a serverless platform for managing Redis and Kafka as well, and maybe a bunch of more services. The last time I checked Upstash, I think it was just for Redis, but maybe now they have created more services. Postgres, of course, everyone knows. If you are into SQL databases, you know about Postgres, MySQL, all of these. This is also powered by a service called as Neon, which again is a serverless Neon database. Let's see. So it's a serverless thing, serverless Postgres, okay. And blob storage as well, which is powered by Cloudflare R2. So these services in themselves are a great set of features which you can expect, a Redis for, maybe rate limiting your API routes instantly so that you don't exhaust something if you're doing a computationally expensive thing, and Vercel blob for supporting uploads and so on, and Postgres of course is a huge database itself available to you. The first and the biggest problem with this page is not on this page, that is on the pricing page. Let's actually take a look at what's going on. So Vercel KV is built on something known as Upstash, and Upstash also offers a SaaS product, right? The same offering which Vercel KV is. It's just that you don't have to go through the hops of going through to upstash.com, setting up a Redis store, and then working on that. Vercel charges you $1 per database, Upstash free. So, if you take a look at free request, Vercel has 90% less than what Upstash offers in their own offering. Similarly for paid requests, similarly for storage and paid storage. So you see, every single thing which you get in Vercel KV, by the way, this is actually a very strong comparison because Vercel under the hood uses Upstash. They admit that, we are using Upstash as your partner, and still they have so much more price on every single thing compared to Upstash. Now, this makes sense. I'm not saying this is wrong. This makes sense if you are adding a lot more value on top of whatever it is you're doing. In this case, it's hard to understand what exactly is the value. Why? Because connecting to Redis requires you to have one single string for just connection purposes, and that's it. So what essentially Vercel KV is selling is the SDK. It's selling you the node package, which npm module, whatever you're installing, and a little bit of setup cost, right? So if you go to the storage section on Vercel's dashboard, you're gonna see that you can set up a KV store or anything you want, and it's just a nice UI. You just continue, you just create whatever the database name is, you select the region, and that's it. You don't have to do any sort of Upstash setup or billing or anything. Your billing will be handled by Vercel. But this price range is insane, right? So you pay almost like 75% more to Vercel if you're doing it directly via Upstash. This gets crazy as we move forward. Neon offers you serverless Postgres as one of their services, which again Vercel uses under the hood. They say explicitly that they use Neon. And just take a look at this. So paid compute time by some magic is same. Rest of the things are of course bloated up because of Vercel, because of some reason which I honestly don't know, but that's what their pricing looks like currently. The biggest one is here. The biggest one which I actually like don't understand at all is this one. I mean, I can just digest everything else which has been, price bloat. But what I don't understand is that Cloudflare R2, if you're using Cloudflare R2, why or how can you charge us for the bandwidth when Cloudflare keeps it free? This is an infinite percentage increase in whatever the underlying service charges you compared to what you are charging us. And it's not even that Cloudflare R2 charges nothing to enterprises. It's nothing for consumers also. So if you go to Cloudflare R2 today, their egress cost is 0. That's like the only reason of, not the only reason, but a very strong reason of using R2 instead of like something like S3, which pretty much has the similar API. So Cloudflare R2 also follows S3 API, and Vercel Blob is an SDK over Cloudflare R2. And that also, like, I'm not sure like a good enough, because it doesn't support like signed URLs and it doesn't support a bunch of other things maybe which are in the Cloudflare SDK itself. But this is absolute bonkers. I mean, for once, we use Vercel a lot. We have a lot of our front-end frameworks and everything hosted on Vercel. But seeing this breaks my heart. Like, what the hell are you doing as a company? You are charging for something you are getting for free. Similarly, double the cost for storage. If you compare this with S3 even charges 9 cents for consumers, right? I think in their, whatever their lowest or highest is, but I think in US East one, for S3 per GB data transfer rate is 9 cents, and that goes down with your usage. So if you are into a 1 terabyte plus customer, of course enterprises get a lot more cheaper rates. But with Cloudflare R2, Vercel currently is expensive than AWS, right? And AWS I used to consider the most expensive in terms of bandwidth and compute. I mean, it's pretty much the same all across, but bandwidth, AWS is very expensive, Cloudflare is the cheapest, and Vercel is built on cheapest but is more expensive than the most expensive I knew. So as I understand, when you pay for something like this, for Vercel KV, Vercel Postgres, what you are actually paying is for these SDKs. So might as well just, you could have made these SDKs paid, but of course that doesn't make sense. So you take it out on pricing, because if you are hosting it on Cloudflare R2, even technically speaking, there is not a lot of infrastructure to manage on the bandwidth side, right? Cloudflare R2 is doing the storage, so you are not storing it. Cloudflare R2 is doing the data transfer, so you might be doing some level of DNS proxy magic, but that doesn't mean that you can charge 15 cents per GB transfer when the underlying service is free. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. All of these services make sense only if you are an enterprise Vercel customer, because then and only then you might have these values absurdly low, or whatever their sales team pitch you. But these prices might be great for someone who just stays in the free tier of Vercel or in a very low cost. But this is something which absolutely no startup or no mid-sized company could use. Like even like codedamn, we will never use Vercel Blob at this pricing. We will never use Vercel KV. And as a developer, if you are working in a mid-sized company, it is relatively easier to set up S3 or Cloudflare R2, to be honest, than going through just saving your 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even 30 minutes or 1 hour of spending time to set up a bucket and just having all the access rights and everything. So I don't understand what the pricing is. And again, if you take a look at Vercel Blob, their SDKs are great. It's great, it's clean, you can see through exactly what's happening, what you want to do. But I just don't understand, like, is this all you're offering? If that's all, then this still doesn't justify what you're charging. This, of course, shouldn't actually surprise me, given that they charge $40 per extra 100 GB hours, which is, I think, close to $8 or 80 cents. I don't remember the exact number, but I did the numbers a few months ago, and it was like for AWS Lambdas, it's $8 or 80 cents. I don't know. So 5 to 50x increase in price of the underlying thing which they already use. What they have good in terms of pricing is 1 TB of course, like, it's a good amount of bandwidth which they give away for free in the pro account, but then $40 per extra 100 GB. Again, an insane amount of cost for something like Vercel, which is underlying using AWS for bandwidth again. I agree you have to do some level of magic work for mapping URLs properly to your S3 infrastructure and buckets, but Vercel is not doing the hardware stuff. Vercel is not doing, managing the servers or EC2's instance or anything. They are very likely using managed services as well, like S3 for example, or queuing services or anything, whatever their underlying infra is. But this still doesn't justify the amount of charge they put on top of whatever they already charge. One way I can make sense of all of this is that Vercel loses a lot of money on hobby and pro on the bandwidth side, on whatever things they offer for free. They kind of make it all up in the enterprise and the weird pro pricing they have, right? So this is the only thing which makes sense, because they have a very generous hobby tier. And I know a lot of people who use Vercel for hobby, and they probably, just getting a lot of cost because of all this free offering, this build execution time of 6,000 minutes, image optimization, all of this. This is not free, right? So if you go to AWS, if you are running into all of these limits, you're definitely paying something. Even if that's a small amount, like $10, $15 a month, you are paying something, and multiply this with thousands or tens of thousands of projects which are there, right? So Vercel is racking up probably in hundreds of thousands of dollars of bill on the free things. They make it up with the enterprise for sure. Like their enterprise contracts start with, 20,000-30,000 US dollars a year minimum commitment with 12 months commitment. And they make up for these same things for pro. But I mean, these prices are just insane. So yeah, I mean, if anyone from Vercel team is also watching, this is like a genuine feedback from somebody who actually uses Vercel for their startup. Nobody's gonna go for this level of pricing. No serious developer is gonna go for this level of pricing if they know even a little bit, or even if they have a little bit of understanding about S3 or anything, right? S3, R2, you guys are giving it all away, the names and everything. It makes no sense at scale. I would never pay $1,000 on bandwidth to Vercel if I could just shift my data to Cloudflare R2 directly, replace a bunch of URLs, and save thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a month with just 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, even a day's effort. That counts, because over the months it'll just pay itself back if you're growing as a company. I'm gonna skip day 2 and day 3 because day 2 is an enterprise feature, so of course we don't know a lot about it as a company ourselves because we are not on Vercel Enterprise. Seems interesting, but again, enterprise is a completely different division for Vercel, and which I'm guessing they make their most money out of. Day 3 is also for enterprises itself. This seems a little bit more interesting because they have brought in a bunch of tooling for people to handle and manage their projects properly. But what is more interesting than that, which we can also see and not exactly experience because this is also enterprise, but you can edit your whatever content you are getting generated from a CMS like Sanity directly into Vercel Previews. And Vercel Previews is also one of the things which is interesting business model for them. Again, makes no sense for pro users because they charge you $20 a month per seat without any add-ons. So if you are a 10-member seat, and if you want to give your product manager the access, if you want to give your graphic designer the access, you're easily running in $200 a month bill, even though there are just 2 developers on the team. Makes no sense from a seat pricing from a small to medium-sized business. But again, this is like a no-brainer for enterprises to just go and pay $20,000, $30,000 a year and then get as many seats as they want. So yeah, this is cool. I could not see like a lot of live demonstrations for it because there's just one video which tells you what exactly you're doing. You just click on edit, you just edit it right then and there, and this gets updated and synchronized in your CMS at the backend. So again, something for enterprises, but not exactly, not sure like how well does this work and how this fits into the whole thing. The last one, of course, the day 4 was launching Next.js 13.4, which, the finest work done by Vercel is making Next.js a great product, a great framework, and open sourcing it. They have done a bunch of things in this. App router is now stable. So they are saying that you can use this in production with all the RSCs and nested routes and everything. Turbo Pack, something which Vercel again is working on and got a lot of backlash in their initial launch for saying that, it's faster than Vite and it's so much faster than that, this and that, and then other author toolings. Other authors show that their toolings were wrong in a way, so their estimates were way off. So I'm still not sure about TurboPack as much. I've seen a bunch of players in this space. RSPack was one. So RSPack is, I think, by Bytespeed. I'm not sure who the owner was, but this was built by a team of Chinese developers. I'm not sure who. Yeah, ByteDance. Yeah, the company behind TikTok, not Bytespeed. So ByteDance is the company which is working on RSPack, and this is like a replacement for Webpack written in Rust. What TurboPack aims to be, but actually better, because this keeps the compatibility together, right? TurboPack takes a hard decision of, breaking Webpack in a way and then bringing support. RSPack is working in a different direction. So we are yet to see like how everything works out. Then there is something known as server actions, which is in alpha now, where you can have functions and you can just write them in React directly and, just use the Vercel services which they introduce, like KV and storage, and just directly querying the database. But for the most part, until and unless this is really required, I would never want to use backend alongside frontend, and there are a bunch of reasons for this. Vercel does not handle secrets properly. So inside Vercel, if you take a look at secrets, there is no dedicated service like AWS has for secret management and so on. So secrets is an issue. Then how do you secure this over, how do you separate, first of all, your concerns for front-end and back-end? So front-end, I believe you can use back-end, but that should be done via API layers so that you have the appropriate checks in place, you have the appropriate middlewares for APIs themselves in place, you have rate limitings in place, which you can, by the way, do it, but it's pointless to do it on a function level. Sometimes you need a global rate limit. You need to analyze some data. So we at codedamn, the way we work is that our front end is purely front end. Anything that needs an interaction with backend actually calls the backend APIs, either in get static props or from the front end itself. There is no level of exposure done on the backend, like something like this. The third one, of course, is that if you're not using these services like Vercel KV and Postgres and anything, how do you communicate the data? Do you communicate it over internet? Well, that's bad because you will have very slow response times. If you do it over intranet, then you can't just put Vercel's front end into a dedicated IP range or even in a VPC until you are on enterprise. So again, these features are great for very small developers or enterprises, but not for companies in mid to large size, small to medium size range. So all in all, what I feel are a few things about Vercel. The first one is that Next.js is great. We use it at production at codedamn, and it's a very solid framework. The second one is I feel that Vercel is building primarily for two audiences. The first one is people who have very low usage. So, it is strictly for indie developers who are just working on basic projects which will receive less traffic or probably none, and they just like the overall experience of using Vercel. And the second set of audience that they are working for is enterprises. And the second set of audience for which Vercel is building is for enterprises, where they charge a lot of money for, just giving away all the seats and all these access and so on, whatever their black box pricing works for company to company. They are not building anything for, people who receive like 3 million, 4 million page views or, a few 100,000 users consistently over a month. If you look at their pricings as well. So, and when I say 3 million, 4 million users, I mean on a freemium product, not on a paid product. So you can have a blog on Vercel with a bunch of images, and you will be charged so insane high prices for using their image service that you would have to either move on to some other service for image processing, or just bite the bullet and just keep paying the bills if you just blinded by the experience. So my 2 cents to take away from this video is that you should absolutely use Vercel if you fall in either of these 3 categories. The first one is that you're very small enough that you just have to host a project and that's it, you just forget about it. The second one is that you're a very large company like an enterprise and you can afford to pay for thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars and then get all the goodies they have. Or the third bucket is where you use Vercel only for the services where they have very minimal pricing, like bandwidth, for example. In the pro plan, you're not exceeding 1 TB of bandwidth generally, and for anything which is slightly more heavy, you use S3, you use R2, so you delegate everything else except for hosting. your basic required assets on Vercel. Everything else, image processing, somebody else. If you have a critical requirement on Vercel's revalidation feature, don't do that. Use some cron to host it on Lambda to do that. If you're constantly refreshing and running out of your serverless execution. If you want to use storage, don't use Vercel Blob, use R2 or S3. So all in all, use Vercel. If you're a mid-sized company, use Vercel only for hosting your website. Everything else needs to be deduped on, not deduped, but just hosted everywhere else on either on Cloudflare stack, on S3 or AWS, anything else, anywhere else where the prices are low. Because if you are hitting at scale, we still at codedamn get thousands of dollars of bill on AWS itself, and it might as well run into tens of thousands of dollars if we shift it to Vercel today in terms of storage and usage and everything. So it doesn't make sense for us as a company and might as well not make sense for you. So you have to be careful and not just get swayed away into the branding and the advertising alone. Just take out some time, understand your requirements. You have to pay some amount of money, that's for sure, but where do you pay it and at what expense, that is important. So that is all for this video. I hope you learned something new. I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. If you're still watching this video, make sure you comment down in the comment section, I watched this video till the end. Also, if you're not part of codedamm's Discord community, you're missing out a lot on events which we organize on a weekly basis to code. You already know the drill. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you so much for watching.